CPAC has gathered in Hungary this past week, and it's the largest that they've had this entire year. And if you're gonna do something, you gotta do it right. So as you could probably understand, they're there because they wanna celebrate and talk about what's going on with this replacement theory. We've been hearing this a lot lately, even though Tucker Carlson said he's never heard of it before. But there's a reason why they did go to Hungary for this, because their leader, Viktor Orban, is running this pro-fascist government out there, and they're like, this is a good place to do this, right? Let's go to some of the details of what was going on, and especially since Viktor himself gave a little bit of life to this and said, hey, I welcome it. I'm thinking the same way. As a matter of fact, I have a solution. Here's some details from Orban. I see the great European population exchange as a suicidal attempt to replace the lack of European Christian children with adults from other civilizations, migrants, is what he declared in a speech to mark the start of his fourth term in office. Echoing another popular theme on the American right, he argued that another form of cultural suicide was, quote, gender madness, a reference to the spread of LGBTQ+ rights in the West. So during this entire conference, he made it very clear that Hungary is on board for this. They love this culture war. I mean, it's a bit of a confirmation for the American right. But also, he said this: Hungary is the laboratory where we have managed to come up with the antidote for progressive dominance. You know that progressive dominance we enjoy here.
Yeah, really? Okay.
The nation comes first. Hungary first, America first. That must have been a big applause line for them there with those Americans. So continuing on, because Matt Schlapp, leader of CPAC as well, even found a way to connect this to the way the politics have been pushing against women's rights to access to abortion as well. And you're like, how does that connection happen? Great replacement theory and lack of abortion access? This is how. This is what Schlapp said. If you're worried about this quote unquote replacement, why don't we start with allowing our own people to live? Matt Schlapp was obviously white. He asked the US media to be shut out of CPAC in Budapest, where he spoke on Thursday, because why should we want to hear what he has to say, right? Also, their master plan comes after reviewing all of his, more of his comments about this entire thing. So by scuttling Roe versus Wade, which is a quote, good start, Schlapp reportedly emphasized, and he said, referring to that Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito's draft opinion, that's gonna do just that, as you can tell. So he says, if you say that there's a population problem in the country, but you're killing millions of your own people every year through legalized abortion every year, if that were to be reduced, some of that problem is solved. Weird, okay. Let's have all these, now by the way, when they say America first, we know which Americans they're talking about. Let's have these babies in order to do that. I'm glad that Roe versus Wade is looking to be overturned so we can go ahead and populate our country with the right kinds of people. Making that connection seems like it's a stretch. Maybe no one would have predicted it. Someone here did, watch.
And look, I think all of what we're experiencing politically in the country right now is intertwined, because which political group is taking freedom and liberty away from women by not allowing them to make medical decisions about their own bodies? It's the right wing, which, as Cenk mentioned earlier, is now dominated by this ideology where you have more than half of Republican voters believing in this nonsense conspiracy theory of white replacement. And so I think that the plan here is to purge the country, in their minds. I mean, it's a ridiculous notion, but in their minds, purge the country of anyone who's not white, and then basically force white women to reproduce, right? To bulk up the numbers of white people in America.
Hashtag Anna was right. So look, Matt Schlapp is the head of CPAC. That is the biggest conservative gathering in the country. And so this is a very substantial right winger in America. And he just did it. He connected abortion and replacement theory. And just like Anna said, so he's saying, we need to have more of our, quote, our own people. I wonder what he means by our own people. But we need to make sure that those immigrants coming from other cultures, not just countries, but other cultures, are stopped because they're trying to replace our people. Now, if you're talking about it in terms of American citizens or Hungarian citizens, especially for America, what would be the difference? Our citizens are from all over the world. They're Latino, black, white, Jewish, Muslim, Christian. So replacing them with other Jews, Muslims, Christians, black, white, what difference would it make, right? No, they're obviously talking about white people, okay? And because most of the immigrants coming in now are non-white. And Tucker Carlson made that very clear when he said the worst law that we ever passed was in 1965 when we stopped the law that said you could only have immigrants from Europe. So Tucker Carlson liked that, the right wing liked that, only white immigrants. And he said the worst thing that ever happened was allowing immigrants from non-white countries, non-European countries. So they're not hiding it, they're very clear about that. So Orban talks about the same thing about cultural suicide, and we don't want those other cultures here. And so that's why we have to create more babies and make sure that they do not come in here. So guys, here's one simple way to understand it. This crazy replacement theory. If they said to me, Cenk, you don't understand. You gotta be in favor of the replacement theory. If they try to convince me, right? They say, I would ask them back, oh, okay, who am I getting replaced with? Well, people that are just like you. Okay, what? I don't get it. Why would that be? And by the way, they're not replacing me. They're not, let's say that it's an immigrant from Mexico. I'm not going to Mexico. I'm not going anywhere else. No, they're adding to the country. They're not replacing anyone in the country. And so the question is, are they welcome or are they not welcome? And you could have different opinions on the level of immigration that we should have, but I don't see why a Latino immigrant would in any way replace anyone in America or even be a problem. The only reason it would be a problem is if you think the country should only be for white people. It's super obvious, but because the conservatives never say the two sentences together, the media has never connected it. I guarantee you that if Anna had made that point on cable news, they would have thought it was the most outrageous thing they'd ever heard. Oh, that sounds conspiratorial. But now, one of the leading Republicans and right-wingers in the country has confirmed, yeah, that's what it's about. More white babies, less brown people.
Yeah, and there's another layer to this too that the media has never written like outside of here, nobody's ever gonna make this connection because the reality is this is exactly the same conspiracy theory that was circulating in Germany in the 1930s. It's not similar, it's literally exactly the same. Because if you ask these right-wing weirdo conspiracy theorists, ask them who they think is doing the conspiracy theory. They literally, and it doesn't take that much investigation to find out that behind the scenes, they think this is some sort of secret cabal of Jewish folks that are intentionally replacing white people. That's the core of the theory. And there's another layer to this too, which is something that these right-wingers are tapping into, these politicians are tapping into, which is at the personal level, there's a fear. And this is the connection between the issue of abortion and the connection to queer rights in the United States, especially when it comes to trans people, which is look, Americans, right? Specifically, white men in America have long been encouraged to hold the belief that they are in essence the kings of their household, right? And that their wives and children are their property. Both the right to an abortion and the right for people to be themselves, right? Whether they be gay or trans or whatever, run directly in contradiction to that, right? If wives are able to get abortions, then that deprives the king of the household his property of his potential children. And if children are allowed to grow up and transition or have gay relationships, then that threatens the right of parents to permanently dictate not just the childhood of people's lives, but their entire adulthoods and entire future. And so that is what these right-wingers are tapping into. They're telling these people that they're losing these things, they're losing the property rights that they think they should have over their families, and then using it to peddle this incredibly deeply anti-Semitic conspiracy theory with a million different layers of racism thrown on top of it.
Yeah, so I want to build off that because if you remember in Charlottesville, they chanted, "The Jews will not replace us," which at the time I found to be super curious because I had not heard that particular phrase from the Nazi past, right? I would have thought wait, the Mexicans will not replace us for right-wing, loons. Okay, I at least see a causal connection because most of the immigrants are coming in from Mexico, even if a lot of them are not from Mexico originally, a lot of them are from Honduras, other parts of Latin America, etc. But or the Latinos will not replace us, or immigrants will not, but Jews will not. Is there a big wave of Jewish immigration?
Replacing, yeah.
Right? So it was weird. Then you realize, oh no, that's an old Nazi slogan. And why? Because the Nazis, just like Tucker Carlson and Matt Schlapp and the right wing in this country, and Viktor Orban in Hungary, say it's not that the Jews are replacing us with other Jews. It's that the Jews are the puppet masters that are replacing the white voters with non-white voters so they can have more power. And in fact, Orban referenced Soros, who is Jewish, as the one controlling these things. So Ben is exactly right. It is identical to Nazi propaganda. So it's super scary times, guys. And by the way, you know who believed in the replacement theory? So you know the shooter in Buffalo did. You might have heard the shooter in Texas that killed all those Latino folks down there. But the 2 synagogue shooters also talked about the replacement theory, and that's why they went to go kill Jews in a synagogue. So, and now conservatives are openly celebrating this insane, fascist, anti-Semitic theory. And so if you're wondering, by the way, like if you said to me, the Turks are gonna be outnumbered in America, I'd say, yeah, mission accomplished. Okay, we're a tiny, tiny minority, but I wouldn't care. Who cares? Like it doesn't, I don't know why that would bother me. So if you're a decent human being and you're wondering why does it bother them, right? Because in their sense, and Ben is also right that they go after LGBTQ people, and why is that part of this conversation? Because Orban in his speech talked about gender madness. Why? Because he thinks, and they think, and this has traditionally been the case too, if more people are gay, you'll have less babies. So less white babies from us, because a lot of now we're more open to LGBTQ community, so we're having less white babies, and that is greatly bothers them. So because they think they're going to be outnumbered, and their base assumption is that everyone makes decisions based on race. So since they're racist and they think, well, I would only want white people to have power, and I would never want minorities to have power. If minorities outnumber us, they will do the same thing to us, and we'll lose all of our power. White people will lose all of their power, and they don't want that. So, but think about how brazenly racist that is. That's saying, yeah, no, I want white people to be in charge. We've been in charge, I want to stay in charge, and I assume that everybody is racist like me and would obviously discriminate against other races like we've been doing all along. So it is over the top racist and anti-Semitic, and there's CPAC embracing it and clarifying it with one of the biggest fascist wannabes in Europe, Viktor Orban, who, by the way, not only is on board for the replacement theory and anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, and he's launched a couple of them in Hungary, but also shows them how they can slowly take away freedoms while pretending to be in favor of freedom. Orban has limited political power in the country to only his side. He has slowly taken away more and more of the democracy in Hungary. That's why Tucker Carlson has gone several times to study him. He went once in person. He's apparently giving a speech at this same conference right now. And he's like, whoa, you're almost eliminated democracy. That sounds really good. Because why? Same thing. They're worried that the minorities are going to outnumber them. So in a democracy, they'll lose power. So the only thing they care about is power, not democracy. So they're like, well, look, we're gonna try to outnumber them by limiting immigration and limiting abortion. But if that doesn't work, we'll just end democracy and white people will be back in charge.
Now, last thing as far as CPAC goes, you mentioned CPAC, we saw they're doing this European CPAC. This is the collection of where politicians, influential politicians, pundits, and every conservative in the country goes to exchange their ideas and then leave there with an approach that they're gonna then legislate with and run their campaigns off of. They get a pulse for who their supporters are at CPAC. It's one of the events where they do that. Then after they do that, they put it into action. So just know that's where this is all going.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges, You got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.